Okay, let's get started making these pumpkin boxes. It's really fun to do. I think you're going to have a good time. You can use these for anything, but I'm going to be using it, as you already saw, on a card. So this, what you see right here, is a 1.5 inch box. I am also going to be making a 1 inch box, and this is what you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need some cardstock, and in this case I use the embossed, I guess, dotted paper that I got at Michael's. And I'm also going to be using some green ribbon. I'm going to be using some black scrap paper. I'm going to be using a 1 inch punch, a 1.5 inch, or just a 1/2 inch punch. I am also going to be using a punch that would be your typical hole punch, and then the one size that would be just down from that. And it's really not the brad size, because the brad size I think is smaller. This would be for like the larger brad size. So that's basically what you'll need for supplies, other than tape and some glue to put your face on. So the first thing I did was I cut out a piece of paper, and this is for the 1.5 inch size, and that measures 4.5 by 7.5. And then what you do is, because you're making a 1.5 inch box, you bring this to your score board and you score all of these 1.5 inches horizontally all the way across, and then vertically. Once you do that, you fold them, and then you're going to see I've cut this. You want to go up 2 and cut it on both sides. This top piece will be the top of your box. This will be the bottom of your box. And then I also, if you want to do this in a 1 inch, which I've already done, that would be cut 3 by 5 inches. So I'm going to show you on the smaller one, although I should have showed you on the larger one how to put it together. So far I've already creased everything. Now what you're probably noticing, this will be the bottom of the box, just this part. And what you do is basically you fold in all those corner spots. And if you can see that, see if I can get it closer. So I'm going to, basically those are all done except for one. This would be the bottom of the box like I told you. And you can see you can tape those down inside so it's actually together better, but now we still have the top pieces to do. And the ones on the top, you don't do these right here. Those are the flaps. But you're going to be doing both of these corners. This again I've already done, but I'm going to try to do one for you so you can see what I do. I try to really get that point really well and get it started. Make sure that point is really good. And then I match up. See, I got to make sure if it's not matched up right, I'm not going to crease it in the diagonal. But you see how I'm saying it's got to be matched up really well? And I fold it over, make sure it's not hanging over. And then I pinch that part back there to crease it. Once you do that, you've really, technically, that's your box. It's just putting it together. Now what I did for the one I've already showed you is I put a band around the top of it. This is not easy to do when I'm not really looking straight down at it, but here we go. I put a band of a strip of my cardstock around it to hold it in place. So see, I've just put that together, and I got to crease it so make sure it lays flat. And then I just take a strip that I've cut like this, and this one's a little bit wider than what I want, but then I just wrap it around and I tack that down. That will hold it in place. It'll also be kind of like a belly band. You could pop it off and still use this if you want to for a gift. But again, like I said, I would probably tack or tape all those down. So that's the 1 inch box, and you've already seen that I made the 1.5 inch box. So that's the boxes. Now if you want to see how I do the faces, again, I don't know if you've ever punched things out like this before, but whenever you make something and you're going to use a smaller punch, one time, you know, I punch up the big one and then I try to put that big piece into the small. Sometimes it just doesn't work. So your best bet is to always take your smallest one first, and you just punch it like that, and I've got that hole. Let me move him a little bit out of the way. And then what you do is you take your big one line up to about where you think you want it to be. Well, in this case, I've got that arch there, so it's messing me up. Let me make that straight. Okay. Scrap, so it doesn't really matter. Put that back in. I line that up to about where I think I want that mouth to be. You'll see, like, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Let me do it this way. If you could see it. There we go. And I punched that out. Of course, it went flying. And there it is. You see, it's kind of like an earring, almost a hoop earring. I take my scissors, and I figure, okay, I want the mouth to be like about right there. And that would be my mouth. And you just do it all different sizes. Now I do the exact same thing for the eyes. And I just change the sizes of my hole punches, you know, depending on what I want it to be on the pumpkin. So there you go. That's how I go about making the eyes and the mouth. It just, same concept, and that's what I do. I'll continue showing you how to put the card together. All right, a few more things I forgot to tell you about the boxes. I now have my 1-inch box done next to my 1.5-inch box. And I told you inaccurately at the beginning to use a 1-inch punch to make the mouth on the large pumpkin, but I actually used a 3/4-inch punch instead. And again, I use that with the 1/2-inch punch to make the mouth. If you use a 1-inch, it's a little bit larger. It's not really a big deal. So that's what this looks like. And then this is what they look like when you actually punch them out. And you can see how there's a little bit, they just kind of look like an eye in a way, which is what they are. But what I do, and I think I showed you this already, for the mouth is I just snip that bit off and I get that look. Now, here's the deal. That eye that goes on the 1.5-inch is also the same size that I use on the 1-inch for the mouth. Just wanted you to know that little tip so that when you go to make them, you can make 3 instead of just the 2 eyes. And then those are the tiny eyes, the same thing. So, this is already coming off. How about that? I wanted to show you I also did the ribbon and how I did that and how I put the boxes together. When you get done making the boxes, see if I can push this up here. This is the outside flap, and it bops slightly. Even though you're going to put the band around it, it still bops. So what I do, you could do a couple of things. You could really snip that if you don't want all that bulk, but I put a glue dot, and then I just press that down, and that keeps that down pretty good for me. And again, if I still want to use that as a box, I can. Then what I do is with that piece of paper strip that I have, I actually take that and wrap it around the box. That's how I really get my measurement and actually how I know where it actually creases. So that's going to work fine, the way the length that is. So then all I do is right here, I will put double-sided tape and I'll tack that down. And that will be my box for that. Now, I like to use this side for the face. So that leaves me with this right here that I can tie my ribbon on. So I thread the ribbon through there and I tie my knot. And that's how I get that at the top. If you can see, that's what I do. So I just wanted to give you that little bit more about the boxes, but now I'm ready to make my card. Okay, so I'm continuing with my project, my Halloween project with the pumpkins. And as you can see, I have put on a My Besties image on my pumpkin. And I kind of did the trick from the card in the box where they use acrylic pieces to make strips. This is the acrylic, this was just packaging, and I saved the packaging and I cut a strip. And what I did was, first of all, this is the image. You can see this partly cut off pumpkin. She actually was sitting on this pumpkin, and I cut her off the pumpkin so she could sit on my pumpkin. And what I did, I'm turn her around, and if you can see, there's a foam dot, but if you can see, if I can get that closer, she is attached to an acrylic piece of paper, and that keeps her stable, sitting up, freestanding. And I also put a slit if you can see that, in the top of my pumpkin. And then I slid this piece of acrylic down there to where I wanted her to sit. And that's how she turned out to be like that. And she's going to sit on the base of my card. So she's all ready to go. Now I need to make my card base. So what I did was I cut a piece of paper, that this is a full length of 11.5 cardstock, 8.5 by 11, rather not 11.5, 8.5 by 11, and I cut this cardstock so that it measured. Let's see, make sure we've got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 3/4 is what I did. So it's 5 3/4 across, and then it's half of 11.5, folded in half. That's what that is. Then what I did to make it an easel card is I took the top piece and I folded that again in half. And then as you can see, I've got this cutout of a square. And what I did is, because my box that's going to be going in there, if you can see, my box is going to be setting in there. Slide that down a little bit. It needs to be a little bit, well, actually this is exactly 1.5 inches. So it is a tight, but not too tight. It is a tight fit so that that doesn't wobble when it is sitting on there. So you want to make sure that you test your opening that you're going to be cutting out on a scrap piece of paper to make sure that your 1.5 fits in there and it's not too tight and it's not too big. What you can do is even give it a little bit of a shim. If you do it exactly 1.5 inches or 1.5 inches, just go ahead and give it a little bit of a shim and cutting a little bit, you know, across this little bit, and that would make it work. So anyway, that is our card base, and it will set up like this, and the pumpkin is going to be sitting in that opening right there. So you're going to think, oh dear, how am I going to cut out this piece right here? Well, this is what I did. First of all, I cut my matting. I'm going to have a mat, and it's going to be the black. And so in order to get the right position, what I did is I actually turned this over, lined it up just like I'd have it in the front so that, you know, it was where I wanted it to be, turned it back over, and I drew in there with a pencil where I wanted it to be. And then once I did that and I could see the pencil, oops, I guess I got it backwards. I got the pencil mark because this is for the back actually, that's why it's on the other side. But anyway, after I put the pencil mark in there, as you can see, I took the next size up die that I had, square die, and I lined that up so that I have just enough space beyond it, and then I cut that through my die cut. And I ended up with a piece, 2 pieces actually, I have to do that twice. This was my first, and then I matted it, and I did that again. Now, you know what, sometimes you might be off just by like a hair, and I was a little bit, I had a little bit more space here, so all I did was I came back on top and I just trimmed that a little bit away on that side, and it all looks fine. It is going to be going on the front. This will be the front flap that will go up like this. I also matted another piece of paper that is going to be going underneath inside, just like that. So that's going to be my basic card base, and I'm going to have black on the back here, and then I'm going to be putting this card all together. But there you go. I just want to give you an idea of how to make the card base first.